Hey everyone, it's Mr. Hollywood, and today I am going to do a whole video essay of why I feel like DC has been better than Marvel this decade so far. Now I do want to clarify that I still like Marvel more than DC overall. However, this decade I think DC has easily been better than Marvel. Now, before I give you my reasons of why I feel that way, feel free to share which franchise you liked more this decade down below in the comments. And, I mean, a bonus is what are your favorite and least favorite superhero movies this decade? I'm curious to hear that down below in the comments. And don't forget to vote for the Pitching Fan Vote. Now, I'm going to start with my favorite superhero movies this decade because a lot of my favorites have been from DC. Now, my two favorite superhero movies this decade are actually my two favorite superhero movies of all time, and that is Zack Snyder's Justice League and The Batman. And I almost want to say this alone is why I like DC more than Marvel. However, to put the cherry on top, even if we're going by my third favorite, it's really between The Flash and Spider-Man No Way Home. I actually like those two about the same, and it is one of those things, if you ask me tomorrow, it could change. However, even if I were to give it to No Way Home, that is still three DC movies in my top 4 superhero movies of the decade. And then, then my fifth favorite would probably be Across the Spider-Verse, then Guardians 3, then the new Superman movie, and then probably Blue Beetle. So that's 5 DC movies in my top 8, 3 in my top 4, and my top 2 superhero movies being DC. However, it doesn't even compare to how much I feel about even the worst superhero movies this decade. Now, my least favorite DC movie this decade is Wonder Woman 84, which I honestly still like more than most people. Now, I don't think it's a great movie by any means, and definitely has a lot of problems. However, even with all those problems, I still think it's better than a good chunk of Marvel movies this decade. I think it's better than Morbius and Madam Web. I think it is better than the New Mutants. I think it's better than Eternals, The Marvels, and probably even Black Widow. So that's still a good 6 Marvel movies I think are worse than my least favorite DC movies this decade. Now, I do want to make it clear I did not see Joker 2 or Kraven the Hunter. However, even if hypothetically, which I seriously doubt it, but even if hypothetically Kraven the Hunter was my favorite superhero movie this decade and Joker 2 was my least favorite superhero movie this decade, I would still feel like DC was easily better than Marvel this decade. However, I haven't seen either of them, so I can't judge. But for what I have seen, DC has higher highs and not as low lows this decade. Now, I think it's worth saying why do I like these certain DC movies more than the Marvel movies overall. And I think, obviously I have different thoughts on each DC and Marvel movie, but I think one of the main reasons, and I'm gonna kind of preface for the ones I feel about that are higher on my list, and then the preface for the ones that are lower on my list. For Zack Snyder's Justice League and The Batman, what I love about those films is I love the ambition of those films. Now, I'm not saying that Marvel movies don't have ambition this decade, because I absolutely don't feel that way. However, with Zack Snyder's Justice League and The Batman, Zack Snyder's Justice League was definitely a film that was kind of to right the wrongs about Justice League theatrical cut, and it was to show what Zack Snyder's vision truly was. And I definitely think it was an epic 4-hour film, and I feel like there was a lot of ambition. I feel like there was a lot of heart and story that went into this, and I thought it succeeded at what it was trying to accomplish. And then The Batman took a spin on the Batman character by showing his detective side, which I feel like we hadn't truly seen in Batman live action form. And I think the film did a great job. Along with this, it had Robert Pattinson as Batman, who I think was excellent. Paul Dano as Riddler. Colin Farrell, the Penguin. and Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. Even like the supporting characters with Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, Andy Serkis as Alfred, and even John Turturro as Falcone. And I think it was just casted wonderfully by Matt Reeves. And I just think the story, the music, the acting, the writing, it was just all on point for really both Zack Snyder's Justice League and the Batman. And it really feels like these films just truly feel so grand and epic. And I mean, that is the reasons why they have been, they aren't just my favorite superhero movies of the decade, but of all time. And they would even be among my favorite movies of all time. Now, what about the ones that I'm not as high on? I mean, Wonder Woman 84, I mean, like I said, I don't exactly love the film by any means, because there's definitely a lot of problems. I think it definitely fell off in the final battle. However, I still do feel like it is still, I mean, trying to be very ambitious. And to be fair, I will give credit where credit is due, to even the Marvel movies. I'm not a big fan of, like, the Eternals and I mean, even to an extent, Morbius, where I feel like the Eternals was one of the most ambitious Marvel films, and I definitely appreciate that they tried to go for it, but I don't think it truly worked. And I definitely think it was trying to set up way too much in under 3 hours. Where the reason Zack Snyder's Justice League worked when it came to trying to tell a lot of stories is, well, one, it was a way longer film, so it didn't feel rushed, and because we had time to develop. Where Eternals, they were introducing so many new characters, and I don't think I really cared about a lot of the characters. So, I mean, while I do respect the ambition for Eternals, I mean, it is, first off, my least favorite MCU movie. Second, I just don't think it completely, I just think it missed the mark. Where with Wonder Woman 84, while I definitely don't think it exceeded its ambition, well, I do think I was a lot more invested in the characters. I did think the story was a lot more interesting, and I still think there were things that made me still enjoy it for the most part, because I think it's still a lot more enjoyable than the Marvel films I thought were the worst of the decade. And then even with Morbius, I'm honestly not exactly a big fan of Morbius, but I actually liked Morbius more than most people, because I really do feel like there was some ambition in what it was trying to explore. I do think it also had a good brotherhood storyline. It's just a lot of the film was them talking in a lab, and there wasn't much going on, and it was clearly downgraded by a lot of studio meddling. However, it's actually still not my least favorite Marvel movie of the decade. And that's another thing about DC movies. I think they've been a lot more entertaining this decade, and I feel like they've learned from a lot of their mistakes that they did in the previous decade. Now, if I were to do a whole 2010s video, I mean, I definitely had a lot of problems with DC in the 2010s. Now, I mean, I definitely still think they had their moments in 2010s, but I think they actually learned from a lot of their mistakes during the decade, because I feel like there was a lot more of a story for a lot of the DC films this decade. Now, I do want to make it clear that I've actually enjoyed a lot of the Marvel movies more than most people this decade, and I still think Marvel has definitely had its moments this decade. I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home I thought was great, and it is actually also my favorite MCU film. And also, I mean, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was great, Guardians 3 was great, even stuff like Deadpool and Wolverine I really liked. So, like, I definitely think Marvel movies have had their high points, and I still think the good Marvel movies have outweighed the bad this decade. It's just the problem is, I just think, I mean, their high points don't reach the level of DC films, and I feel like with DC films, there's just a lot more of a unique story going on, and I just think the films have also just been more enjoyable. Like, and now, the Marvel films I do like, and even some of the ones I don't, I still do respect that they do try to go for it. So yes, like I know I've made it sound like I've kind of been hating on Marvel this decade, and like I absolutely don't hate Marvel movies this decade. There's still been a lot that I really liked, to some that I've even adored, like the ones I just mentioned. It's just, I really just think DC has outdid Marvel this decade. So, I mean, I don't really know if there's that much more to say other than that. I mean, I think DC films have just been more ambitious. I think they've been a lot better at exceeding its ambition. So I think that's the main reason why I've liked DC films more than Marvel overall this decade. Now, I am very excited to see the future of both franchises. I mean, I'm very excited for a new Supergirl movie next year. I'm, of course, excited for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. I'm excited for Brand New Day, Beyond the Spider-Verse. I'm even very curious about the Clayface movie. And, of course, I'm very excited for the Batman 2 whenever it does finally come out. So, overall, I think I've made it clear. DC, for me, has been better than this decade than Marvel. Now, thanks for watching. Feel free to share which superhero franchise you liked more this decade down below in the comments. And I cannot wait to do more videos. And I have an interesting series I'm going to do next week for Thanksgiving, Monday through Friday. Every day I'm going to name things about movies I wasn't a big fan of that I actually did like. So that will definitely be an interesting series. Now, thanks for watching, and peace out.